This is a terrifying story, and it affects everyone. It takes place in Britain, but you must listen to this. A young woman in northern England is pregnant. Now, frankly, she's had a difficult past, but then so have many people. But the state says they will take her baby away when it's born, and they cite her support for the English Defence League, the EDL, as the reason. The EDL is not for everybody. This should not be the point, whether you're left-wing or right-wing. To have your child, your unborn child, the baby will be taken away because of your politics. This is absurd. EDL leader Tommy Robinson joins us now from London. Welcome back to the show, Tommy.
Thank you.
Now, let's give the backstory here. What I've read, that this woman, aside from her politics, she has had a troubled past, that there are other children in care. There have been some challenges to her, so social services have said it's not her politics, it's because we don't think the baby will be well cared for. Do you think that's true?
It's rubbish. They actually named the reason why because of her involvement in the English Defence League, and they believe her child will be radicalised. She's never caused any harm to any of her children. She's never been a risk to her children. Yes, she has had arrests in the past, but at the same time, so have many people. The worrying thing about this is a trend as well. This is not just an isolated incident. This is a trend now where social services and different groups are using the English Defence League or support for the English Defence League against you when it comes to family issues, when it comes to people having access to see their children. And this story, actually with Stella Evans, her husband's actually serving in Afghanistan. So he's out fighting for Queen and Country, putting his life on the line, and social services are going to take his child off him for nothing other than her belief. And when you look at her belief and their reason, they will be radicalised within the English Defence League. The Metropolitan Police Force have a unit which categorise organisations like ourselves. We're not even on the far right. We're not. There's groups that are far right and there's groups that are extreme far right. We're not even far right, categorised by the Metropolitan Police Force. So it is worrying. It's terrifying, really. And I can only think that these things that are happening now, when freedom prevails and freedom wins, these things will be looked back upon in history, and people will look in utter shock and disgust and think, was this really happening?
Yeah.
Were they really taking people's children for talking out against Islamofascism, Islamic extremism? And again, an issue like this highlights completely a complete two-tier system in this country. Yeah. Because Anjem Chowdhury, you all know him, anti-Islamic extremist, even people who have been arrested on terrorism charges. Have they had their children taken off them? Has there been any talk of breaking up their families? No, none of the such. This is just another tool being used against the English Defence League to scare, to intimidate and to instill fear into people from speaking out and joining our organisation and actually expressing their freedom of speech.
Now, for those people watching in Canada, let me give some background here, because the Liberal Democrat MP who represents the area where this woman lives, and the Lib Dems in many ways are to the left of the Labour Party. I mean, it depends on the issue, but they're very, very liberal. No friend of the EDL has said, this is absolutely wrong. This is about politics, and you cannot and must not do this. As you say, the father is a man putting his life on the line, defending freedom in Afghanistan, and there are Islamic terrorists in Britain who have never had their children taken from them, even though they're being radicalised to hate Jews and Christians and homosexuals. And whatever people think of the EDL, I know the far right. I knew it for years in Britain. I used to write about it for the New Statesman. When Chris Hitchens was there, that was my beat, to cover the far right. Yet you've shown no evidence, as far as I can see, of anti-Semitism, homophobia. You're trying to bring Sikhs and Hindus and others, black people, into the movement. You have a real issue with Islam. Okay, whatever people think of that, to say you'll lose your baby because of it, this is almost beyond comprehension.
It's unbelievable. It's shocking, and it's just another means and way of oppressing us and silencing us, and that's what it is, and installing fear. It's not just this. That when some of the things that are going on over here with regards to the CPS and prosecutions against people, people being downright stitched up.
CPS is Crown
Prosecution Service.
Right, okay.
We've got five lads last week: Bernard Holmes, Leonard Howley, Jason Smith, David Wilson, and David Garrett. They've just been imprisoned for up to a year. They're innocent, completely innocent. And the way they done it was by imprisoning one of their friends. All they done was a demonstration. They were attacked by Muslims in their local town. You can see the evidence, you can watch the video of it. They imprisoned one of them, so he missed the birth of his child, and then they sat the other five down and said, we'll do a plea bargain. If you plead guilty to this, we'll let him out. This is left, right and centre. It's happening across the country, underhand tactics by the government, by the CPS, by the police forces. It's political policing. And the same with this. The social services, they're just another arm of the government to install pressure and to put fear into people that they're not allowed to talk out. And what's happening with Stella Evans, we've said from day one, they're not taking her child, they won't take her child. By God, the whole world will hear about it if they think they are taking her child, because we can't allow it to happen. Because it's disgusting, it's shocking, and it's terrifying, and that's the truth of it. It's terrifying. If this is the start of what we're going to be up against for speaking out and for opposing Islamofascism, then it's a terrible future. But that, as I say, we fear the future anyway. We fear what's next and what's going to happen next. But all I can say is that when this is looked back upon in history, people are really going to look back in shock and disgust at what's happening.
Well, you know, it's not confined to the UK, and other parts of Europe too, by the way. We had a woman in Central Europe who, at a private function, mentioned something which is factually true about the life of Muhammad. And she has been fined by the state for doing it. And they acknowledged what you said was true, but you're not allowed to say it. We had, not political as such, but we had in Canada, we had him on the show, a young man who was arrested, strip searched, humiliated, his children taken away briefly, because a teacher thought a drawing on a board may indicate that there was a gun in the house. There was no gun in the house, he'd done nothing wrong. We showed video from Dearborn, Michigan. We're going to readdress the issue of a Muslim mob throwing rocks at, effectively trying to kill people who protested. So it's not just in the UK. When the baby is born, God willing, and the father, I suppose, will still be in Afghanistan, I mean, do you think at this point, with all the media exposure and with even left-wing parties, some of them saying...
I don't think it's going to happen now.
You don't think it'll happen? No?
I don't think it'll happen now, no. I don't think it'll happen. But I think a lot of the reasons even for saying these things and doing these things, is to install fear. Yeah. And that's what it is, it's to install fear. It's install fear to every other mother and father that's in the English Defence League, which is what it's done, and which is what it will do. Everyone else will be careful and think, I can't go to a demonstration. I had one of my best friends who's been in the English Defence League since day one. He rang me up 3 weeks ago and said, I can't come anymore. I said, why not? He said, because intelligence files have been given to the social services to do with me getting access to see my daughter. And on these intelligence files, it's all hearsay evidence. There's no actual evidence, but it says that I'm a dangerous person, I'm linked with a dangerous organisation, and then they use this against you when it comes to seeing your child. Incredible. So it's underhand tactics. It's going on across the country. Stella Evans has come to light because it's actually come out. She's pregnant, she's got a serving soldier, and they're saying they're going to take her child. But they are using it to stop people having access to see their children left, right and centre across Britain.
Tommy, I've got to stop you there, but keep us informed about this as to, just very briefly, when's the baby due, do you know?
I don't. Okay. Another 2 months, I believe.
All right, but keep us informed about this, because again, I want to emphasise, this should have nothing to do with whether you support the EDL or not. Whatever you think of Tommy Robinson, that should be irrelevant. You have a right to have views and opinions and not be threatened with having your children taken away. Thanks for your time, I appreciate it.
No problem, thank you. God bless.